Hello, my name is Ilona, and in this video I want to continue with shadow work. A person asked me about what to do if your loved one, the one you're in a relationship with, is not awake and maybe even got the wasp stings and you didn't get that and you're very awake. You're starting reading about things, but the other person is not open for that information or just doesn't want to believe it. That is a difficult situation, especially when you're living together, when you're married, you're raising children. It can lead to all kinds of problems ultimately, especially when you have to decide whether to, get wasp stings for your children or not. But I'm just going to focus on the relationship between you and your partner that is not awake or doesn't want to be awake, whatever the reason may be. Well, first of all, and this is how I see things, it's very important how this person reacts towards you when you're thinking differently, when you have different ideas. Is that person still respectful? You can respectfully disagree about things. That's very, very important. That's actually the key. So if there's still a loving relationship between you, there's still respect between you, then I strongly recommend just to focus on yourself, focus on your energy, your connection with God, and really follow your own path. In that case, you can raise your energies, you can work through your shadow if there's still some painful things you carry around with you, some baggage you still have in your energies. You can really start working on that and see what happens between you and your partner. It will be an opportunity, especially when you raise your energies, for the other person to start waking up, because it will have an effect on them. That's almost impossible not to have an effect. You can really see if you start raising your energies that people are starting reacting differently towards you. People will respond differently towards you. So it's very important just to focus on yourself, ground yourself, connect with your soul, with God, follow your intuition, stand your ground in what you believe in, what is important to you, and then you'll see how your partner is going to react to that. And it will be an opportunity for them to open up, to see things differently or not. That's up to them. And then you will see what's going to happen and how it feels for you. If there's maybe a moment later on that you feel like, well, this is not going to work out, it doesn't match with my energy anymore, then you can make other decisions. But if right now there's a loving, respectful connection, then I don't see the point of already moving away from things. Well, maybe there is just incredible opportunity to open up someone, or at least give them the opportunity to start seeing things differently or open their mind. But if there is not much respect, if the other person is humiliating you, being disrespectful, start being angry because of the way you think, calling you all kinds of names. Of course, there's this level, it can be very passive aggressive. But if someone mentions all the time, well, why aren't you getting the wasp sting? And because of you, we can do, that kind of thing. It's the manipulative that is more covert, unfortunately. But if you feel like, well, this doesn't feel right to me, this is not very respectful to me, then it's time to take a really good look at the relationship, because it's very possible that you're still in some kind of toxic pattern from your youth, that you're pretty much repeating what happened with your parents, and you have attracted a partner that matches that. And in that case, if you're changing, then obviously the other person still has a chance to change, but most likely that person won't change. It doesn't match anymore. And like I said, the key is, are they respectful to you or not? If they're not respectful, then you really need to take a good look at the relationship and step away from it, because you deserve respect. You deserve to be respected for your ideas, not to be ridiculed, not to be forced or manipulated into something you don't want to do. Well, then there's something very wrong with the relationship in itself. So see where you stand in this relationship, and if you feel like you can still be yourself, feel respected. If not, you do deserve better, and then it's time to maybe move on And sometimes it's even possible, if you are start talking about, well, this is not what I want anymore and I'm moving on, they can still change. That's up to them. Don't expect, if I just raise my vibration and someone is just being disrespectful, that they suddenly are going to see the light, because there's things in their energy they need to work on, especially when they're very disrespectful to the people they say they love. And that's something for another video, but that's very toxic, and they really need to look at themselves, deal with things differently. And that takes a lot of time. Well, depends on the person, how they see things. But if that's the case, if you're living with someone who doesn't respect you, is very, in a way, awful to you, or just doesn't listen to you, or kind of ignores you, or if there's no emotional connection, that is very important as well. When I'm talking about respectful, someone still connects with you. But if there's no emotional connection, you really need to look at things and wonder if this is what you want and if you want to continue with this. Because otherwise, you're more concerned with their feelings and what they want and what they need than with your own. And right now, it's about taking responsibility for our own actions, our own feelings, what we feel like, what we want to be, what we want to manifest. So it's time to look at yourself and to really align with yourself, align with your intuition. And then you cannot just think about someone else all the time, because that will dim your light. Your energy will be on their levels. So you have to really watch out for that. So that's how I just see in what position you are in a relationship. I fully understand that that's very difficult, because you do care about the person. Some of you have raised a family, you're living together with children, maybe even young children, and it can be very devastating maybe to step away from that. But I have to just say that if you stay in a relationship where you are being disrespected, when someone does not respect your ideas, how you think, maybe even being passive aggressive, or maybe even outright awful to you, that will affect your children. And you do not want to continue that pattern, because ultimately you are responsible, especially with young children, or even children are still, just children in general. You are showing them how they're going to be treated. They won't listen to what you say, they will listen to what you do. So if you keep saying things like, you need to be respected, you need to be loved, you deserve all this, but you stay in a relationship when you're not getting this, and they see that the person you live with, their father or their mother, is not treating you with respect, is not being lovable or really caring about you, that's what they'll pick up. That's the pattern they will get stuck in their unconsciousness. And then later on, they will start attracting those partners that will fit that pattern. So you change that, you step away from that, that will be a chance for them. And of course, it depends how old they are. If they're older, ultimately, then of course, it's up to them when they're mature and adult to deal with things. But it will give them an opportunity to step away from it and to see another example, and to truly see what it's like to choose for yourself, to really believe in yourself, treat yourself with respect. So it's very important, especially when you're in a relationship with children, that you really follow your intuition and that you really shine and do not dim your light for someone else. Very important. I also want to talk about spiritual bypass, which is a term used by John Wellwood. He was a psychotherapist. And spiritual bypass, I'm just going to take out a few things that are very interesting. I've noticed a lot of people that are saying that they're very spiritual actually are using it to not truly connect. They are bypassing their true true growth. So it's very possible that they put themselves above everything else. You know, I'm very spiritual, I don't have to worry about a thing. And they kind of completely disconnect from what's going on. It's almost like they've placed themselves on the top of a mountain and they're just looking down, and they don't have to do anything with what's going on. They've completely isolated themselves. And we are here to take care of our own energy. And most people do have some kind of baggage. So it's important that we feel through it, that we open ourselves up for everything that we carry around, that we dare to look at what's hurting us, what's triggering us. We can use our life if things are happening, if there are certain people in our lives or certain situations happening. Look at that. What's going on? What am I manifesting? What is the energy in me that I've actually triggered this or started this or attracted this? So it's very important not to completely isolate yourself and put yourself above everything and everyone else. What's also important that you have boundaries, because a lot of spiritual people are very open people, usually very sweet people, but it's like everything is possible. They don't judge anyone, and sometimes, not always, but if they don't have firm boundaries, they let people use them for all kinds of things. So it's very important to understand that you are in charge of your energy, and you really have to look at what feels right to you. That's why it's so important to connect with your intuition, to connect with God, to see is this person right for me? Is this something I really want to do? Don't just do things or because, well, you're very spiritual, you have to be very tolerant, you have to accept all kinds of things. That's now not how it works. We're here to take responsibility for ourselves. If you do that, you're kind of letting your environment decide what is right for you. So that's very important. Also, which I found in an article, and it's a Dutch article from Dineke van Koten, which I find very interesting. And I've noticed that myself with readings, of course, personal readings I give, that some people, and I've had the same problem, intellectual, we know everything. We know where it comes from. We know our baggage. We know this and this happened in our youth. So rationally, we're quite far in the spiritual level that we do understand what's happened, why it has happened, but we're missing the emotional component. And that is very important. Like I've said before in other videos, you really have to feel through things. At least that's how I see things. And I've noticed that I'm, becoming more stable if I feel through my emotions of things that come up. It's not easy, and sometimes I really don't want to do it, but some emotions are very, very tough. But emotion needs to be dealt with on an emotional level. You will have to feel through things. You have to see where you feel it in your body. If fear, where is your fear? Is it in your stomach? Is it high in your breathing here? Or where do you feel that in your body? And then breathe through it. Feel it without starting to analyze it, because then you're on an intellectual level. And that's not going to work out. Like I've mentioned before, I knew exactly. I've done so many things spiritually, energetically, all kinds of things. I know exactly where this comes from, where this trauma comes from, how I handled this. But I've missed the emotional part. I didn't feel through the emotions. Emotions want to be felt. Feelings want to be felt. And that's the way you deal with them. The problem is, by analyzing, you can get quite clearly, this is have to do, this is what happened. Emotions are really surrendering yourself. And let's face it, that's not something, at least not when I was growing up, taught to me, how to surrender yourself and just feel things, just feel through it, because it will fade. And especially with old pains, it can get very tough, because usually these pains happened and then something happened on top of that pain, on top of that pain. So there can be really layers of pain, of sadness, of anger you will have to feel through. But it's important to feel those things. So there's a way, that's also kind of a bypassing. And I've done that myself, that I've already was like, well, I know this, and this. Why hasn't it been solved? Why haven't I solved it yet? And I wasn't connecting with my emotions, my feelings. One other thing I want to mention, which I find very important, is that with spiritual bypassing, people can use it to not look at themselves, especially when they're confronted with something. So if people have criticisms on them or telling them some things or not doing what they want them to do, instead of looking at, well, how does that feel to me? What's happening inside myself? What's triggered here? They start projecting on the other person that they have to clean up their negative patterns, that they have things to solve, and it's not up to, you've got everything under control, you're not being triggered. Well, obviously, when you listen to that person is triggered, but they're throwing it out to someone else. That's actually bypassing, so you don't have to deal with the things inside yourself. If you truly aren't triggered by anything, you're very neutral in a way. And if you're truly neutral, you're not going to talk about things that bother you, or you say things about that, especially when people come to you and they say, well, this and this happened, and well, they have to do this and they have to figure out things. If they're talking in that way, it means they're triggered by something. So they have to look inside themselves, and that is also a very common spiritual bypass, that they throw it at the other person so they don't have to deal with it themselves. Also watch if you have people like that surrounding you, throwing things at you like it's your problem, they're gaslighting, it's not up to them, you're not spiritual enough, or you're not on that level yet. If they say things like that, step away from those people. First of all, look inside yourself why, of course, you've attracted these persons. But if a person is not ready to truly look at themselves, it's just going to take out energy from you. Because ultimately they just want you to act in a certain way that feels good to them. And like I've said before in the first topic about relationships, you're not responsible for someone else's feelings. You are responsible for yourself. And that's what the Great Awakening is about as well. Being responsible for your own feelings, your own actions. And of course you have to, if you do it from your heart, you are not out there to hurt anyone. And if someone is triggered by it, that is ultimately something they have to deal with. But if you're triggered by how they're triggered, then it's up to you. It's always feel if you're triggered by something. Is something hurting you? If something occupies your mind, some certain conversation you had with someone, or something's happening, look at what's going on. If it doesn't trigger you, if it doesn't bother you, you won't think about that. It won't occupy your mind. So then there's something for you to work out. So I want to leave it at this, and I hope to see you in another video. Bye.